Hey guys, Matthew here once again, and I've been playing some of the new fire spells. Sorry, well, old fire spells, but to me they're all kind of new because I haven't really tried too many out last time around. And I wanted to make a proper go of basically just fire spells that exist in the game and to see if we can make Flameblast in particular do anything because everyone's kind of upset it got like a cooldown attached to it, and I wanted to see if it could, hold its own and actually do anything in the game because all I was told is that it's worthless and they nerfed it and what the fuck and it's trash. And turns out, I don't know, it can still kind of do some shit at the moment. Like, this character here is just an attempt at seeing where things take us while we're playing fire spells, and it's an Infernalist, and it's a pretty basic template because there's nothing too crazy, like it's just Infernalist with some crit scaling. And then I decided I would go from fire to cold conversion because it made sense since it doesn't matter what our actual initial damage type is as Infernalist for Ignite. I wanted to do some Ignite. I wanted to try that out. So we're just cold based, technically, and we freeze stuff, we chill stuff, and then with Flameblast in tow, we actually do some big Ignites from time to time. The actual build itself doesn't really do much igniting, or at least, ignite damage, but the Flame Blast, even though it's pure cold damage, can do a pretty big hit and then a decent ignite after the fact, even with very little ignite scaling. The other cool thing about the build that wasn't really originally planned at all is the use of the Pragmatism chest and then some fire charm that lets you do this kind of AoE ignite that you can entirely build a character around if you really want to. But in my case, it's just a bit of a side quest, a bit of a addition to the build. So whenever you see this like sort of pulsing AoE fire thing around me, that's the charm triggering, which it can do every 3 seconds, and it does an AoE fire ability that ignites and is based off of 500% of your life. So you can do life stacking and then just do pure that type of AoE build, but my character here is just using it as kind of an afterthought. Other than that, I'm mostly using Ember fusilade, and it is, like I said, cold converted, so it freezes shit, it fires off a few proj, and it hits kind of hard. The one big problem is, I'm pretty sure what I'm using here is a bugged interaction of attaching wild shards to it, and then when you click it once and get 8 wild shard procs from that 20% chance. If you keep clicking it after that, you're going to keep getting these 8 procs. And it basically feels like how the skill is intended to play and should be played, but it's obviously not built that way, and the way it's built is quite a bit more difficult, and you'd otherwise have to be channeling a few of these fusillades and then unleash a few of them, and to channel them to take a bit of cast speed and a bit of extra mana, while the way we have kind of cheesed it, and probably almost certainly is unintentional, is just by clicking it once, getting 8 proj, and then moving on. You could also kind of do it that way legitimately just by using a Sire of Shards, so then you have 4 additional proj, and every single time you right click, you're just generating 5 charges, and it should mimic the same sort of playstyle. But the damage scaling, I think, is a bit harder on a Sire of Shards because you don't get all the plus gem levels and stuff. That said, this character is far from optimized and min-maxed. I think I just hit like, level 78 or something, and just did my ascendancies for the first time and still kind of figuring things out. But I do think there's some serious potential out there with Ember Fusillade in particular. I know that people have been fucking with this one for the past, few months, and it's certainly a thing. It's not something I'd ever looked at or seen or even thought it was a build, but apparently people have been doing it. And then, all the fire skills do have a bit of a place in my build as well. The entire build is basically just lots of fire skills, so I'm using the Solar Orb to freeze. It can also do some of its own damage and do some ignite. Firestorm occasionally when there's a lot of stuff on screen, we just drop a Firestorm, or if the enemy is a big enough hitbox, then Firestorm can do some actual single target damage as well. But for the most part, it's just attempting to be Flame Blast. 4 big fat crits on bosses, and then some ignites, and then just fun run and gun sort of playstyle with Ember Fusillade. It is its own thing, but it's pretty reminiscent of, let's just say, a Blade Vortex style system where get a few stacks, unleash, run around, and it's a pretty fluid character. It may be one of the best clear speed characters I have made in PoE2, and that's without, putting too much min-max into it yet. It feels pretty similar to my Spiral Volley character that was a chonk, and it didn't really matter what I did with that. It was just a chonk, and it was just Spiral Volley just being good. In this case, it's mostly Ember Fusilade and probably mostly just the bugged interaction, but feels pretty fucking good, and I can recommend it. The leveling was real nice. If you actually go fully into the AoE Ignite Pragmatism thing, apparently that's really crazy as well. And let me go ahead and show you how I built that and that specific interaction. So here we are. The character is at the moment actually level 81. It burns when I WASD. Burns when I P. It's supposed to be kind of an Ignite-based build and character name, but it ends up being kind of true because compared to the last character where I was Thorns and I'm basically just, running up and face planting myself in a certain spot, this character is very mobile and movement-based, and I'm WASDing like a fiend, and it definitely affects my wrist a little bit. So fair warning, if you're old and decrepit like me, that can be a bit of an issue. Either way, it's an Infernalist, and the entire idea of the character was kind of just do Ignite something, figure it out, see where it goes. And yeah, it's still kind of like that. It's still working out to some extent, but it really doesn't have to be Ignite based, doesn't have to be any one damage type based. But as it turns out, going with this, Grinning Immolation, and then using the Pragmatism, which has Charms Use No Charges modifier on it, combined with Beira's Anguish, means that if you can figure out a way to self-ignite and then trigger this charm, you will get it going pretty routinely, and it'll be based off of the 3-second cooldown. Now, you can also use a Bijou belt, which reduces charm duration so that you can proc this thing much more often, but there's an entire build basically around this charm if you want to stack life, stack ignite multiplier, and then every single time you're proccing this with your presence modifier scaled as well, everything within your presence is going to be ignited, and it just clears screens from what I'm told. Mine, it just is a bit of an assist to my build, like helps me do some kind of extra, trash clearing. But for the most part, it's not really pivotal to my build. It's just kind of cool and a little bit of an afterthought. If you want, scale this thing to your heart's content and do a lot of Ignite, a lot of life scaling, and it should be its own thing. My build's trying to be a bit more balanced and do a lot of different things, and also have some single target in the form of Flameblast. So that's just, Solar Orb over there, and then Flameblast, and boom, and hopefully it crits and does big damage. I should mention these are all MTX from the new MTX stuff that you can buy, which is Demon Fire MTX, so that's why it all looks kind of different. For the most part though, my build is almost entirely based around Ember Fusilade at the moment. Everything I'm using is a 4-link, so it's Ember Fusilade that you can either just start channeling, get a lot of proj out, and then unleash them. It's based on duration, so if you got more duration, you can hold it for longer and proc more of them. Or if you do less duration, and you can actually scale even less duration through the tree and stuff, then every single time you click it, it can just fire it off almost immediately. So as you can see, you channel once and it's going to give you 1 little proj, but sometimes it'll give you 8, and if you channel directly after that, you get 8 every single time. So it doesn't feel intentional, but is what it is. Early access, whatever. I'm playing with it. I'm using it because it feels fucking good. So yeah. We're basically, it's a bit of a weird playstyle because we are running around fishing for this 8 proc, and then as you can see, it's going, and just before it actually fires off all of them, if you click again, you get all 8 again. So it's going to be a bit of a weird playstyle if you're just getting into it and a bit confused as to why sometimes you're getting a lot, sometimes not, but that's just how it is at the moment. So my skills there are also forking, and I'm also using the Anoint to fork even harder. So that's where a lot of my clear is currently coming from. So the idea was to be kind of Ignite based, but then things just started feeling good with crit and shatter and cold and stuff. So in the end, I'm actually not really Ignite based at all. It's just an afterthought, and it also does some stuff. So I'm not really scaling it. Instead, I'm just doing some elemental damage, some spell damage, some crit. And that's basically it. I've also got some presence area for my chest and charm interaction. You can also get some presence on your jewels, so up to 20 presence area there, and 20 over here. But otherwise, it's basically just a crit hit build that has some ignite portion to it. And currently, this is my main ascendancy. I just then ascended to grab this stuff, but I don't fully know what I'm doing with the rest of my ascendancy yet. We'll just see how things pan out. Maybe I'll try this out. Maybe fucking, I don't know, Hound or something. Maybe go low life. We'll see. But the idea to get lots of damage for these fire spells is plus gem levels. So +3 all spell skills here. Paid 2 divines for this thing because cast speed, bit of stats. I paid like 10x for this thing and slammed it a couple times, but you're trying to get +5 skills. We wanted 1 extra as lightning sort of roll so that I'm also shocking things quite reliably. Then yeah, crit damage, you know, cast speed, all that sort of good stuff. The weird thing about PoE is it doesn't really, PoE2, it doesn't really scale the same way PoE1 does. So this fire damage does, you know, the increased fire damage is pretty bad and doesn't really do much in this case because all my shit is converted to cold. So we only get increased cold damage to scale for us, or elemental and spell, because that's still just going to apply to whatever we do. And then, yeah, +2 over here, which, you know, just more plus everything. You can also use a staff and get a lot of pluses and shit, and, you know, it becomes competitive, something like this. But ideally, we still need some % damage somewhere because we don't have that much on the tree. A lot of our stuff is just basically crit and, you know, crit damage and stuff. So some plus damage is still kind of good. But I'm converting entirely from 100 fire to cold thanks to these gloves. It's maybe the right play. It's maybe the wrong play. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't convert and just focus on getting more ignite or something instead. But it is a nice defensive layer, and it is part of why I am based around Flameblast freezing, because over here Biting Frost is what I'm using. So I pretty much only Flameblast when something gets frozen and needs that big extra Flameblast. But you could easily just put in a different support there and not have to do that. Because we've still got several others that we can do that give us big more multipliers that don't rely on freeze. So that's, you know, up to you if you really want to go with that. Otherwise, yep, life and mana. I'm trying to get life and mana everywhere because spells start to cost a fuck ton at higher mana costs. So my Firestorm right now does like 500 mana, and you know, it's a bit of an assist to my clear, and my fucking Solar Orb is 600 mana. And then if we want to do cast on freeze and cast on ignites, that starts to churn out a lot of mana as well. So I haven't done too much in the way of fixing mana, but I'm trying to get it as much as I can everywhere, and then ideally we get a bit of mana regen, we can actually sustain lots of mana. Otherwise, I'm just trying to get lots of life everywhere so that we can scale our Pragmatism, Beer's Anguish combo. Yeah, you can, like I said, you can entirely build around that if you want with extra ignite damage and life, or you can ignore that entirely and, you know, build a little bit differently and just use some of these fire skills in their own way. So yeah, that's basically that. And as far as the links are concerned, I was using Flame Wall early on to like help level and stuff, but I haven't used that, you know, since like level 50 or so. Otherwise, Ember Fusilade was my bread and butter this entire time, with Fork, Fast Forward, Wild Shards. Currently using Cast on Freeze for a bit of extra meme, which is a level 10 Fireball. You know, if we fix mana, we can level it up a bit more and stuff. It's got Fluke and Energy Retention. It's not doing a whole bunch, but it looks kind of cool. So, you know, we'll see what ends up happening with my Spirit Reserve. Solar Orb is here for cold exposure at the moment, and also just, you know, freezing things and proccing the cold exposure itself. It's also got Pinpoint Crit. Flammability is currently attached to Inspiration, and I was self-cursing Flammability because I think that's going to be good for our ignite damage when something gets ignited. Otherwise, cursing things shouldn't matter for the initial ignite and stuff, but then I'm using Hypothermia at the moment just so our spells can hit harder when I want to actually crit things. So you know, throughout the journey of the character, I was using 2 different curses for 2 different reasons, and not entirely sure what I'm doing at the moment, but probably Hypothermia for most of the time. Otherwise, Firestorm has Elemental Focus and Cold Pen, and Flameblast has Inevitable Crit because we really want to crit, and at the moment I'm almost at 50% crit, so every, you know, 1 and 2 Flameblast is going to crit. Then I have Biting Frost, Conk Effect, and then we've otherwise got Overwhelming Presence attached to Clarity, which, you know, I can still fuck with some spirit stuff to figure out what I actually want. And then this is a Pandemonium MTX set, and that's pretty much all I've got for now. And that was my learning experience leveling this character so far. Still got a bit of a ways to go to figure out everything I want about the build. I'll attach my character import max roll or whatever in the comments for its current step in the journey. But yeah, you can otherwise check the VOD if you need to see how I kind of level this character. It's mostly just Ember fusilade, fishing for the procs, and then using all the fire skills in different kinds of situations whenever you feel you need to. So with that, fire spells I think are pretty cool. They're in a very weird place. I don't know, if they should be igniting harder or it should be easier to build around ignite. Overall, I think their baseline is a bit weak. And converting to cold being one of the best options feels a bit weird, but there's some fun shit here, and I think there's a bit of a future for these if certain things get slightly tweaked. So with that, thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.